first of all, some background. If there's anyone, is there anyone from a media organisation? Does anyone work in media? Yeah, so, very familiar slide if you work on newspapers at all. I love the Google search. Newspapers it's sort of dying, dead, old-fashioned, In England, we had the phone hacking that reverberated around the world and the kind of demise of the Murdoch empire as we saw it. We have structural decline in our print sales. So, the best performing newspaper in the UK loses sale at about 13% year on year, every year. So it's a really, really, really tough market. And obviously, there are some pretty big players that we now have to call competitors, where I've been at The Guardian 15 years, and when I started, I had The Telegraph, The Independent, and The Times, and the FT as my competitive set. Now it's Facebook, it's Google, it's et cetera, et cetera. So a very, very difficult place, a very difficult time to be a newspaper. But for a few years at The Guardian, we'd been changing and we'd been evolving under a very important leadership of a man called Alan Rusbridger, who's our editor-in-chief. And he's one of those leaders who is always looking 5 years ahead. He's always, when you're obsessing about something that might hit you next month, he's thinking about something in 5 years that you don't even know is a problem yet, and he's thinking about how to fix that bit. And for a while now, Alan had been talking about this, quoting Dickens and saying, if you're a journalist or working media, you can take two views. It could be the worst of times, but it could be the best of times. And we're very much of opinion, but it's the best of times. It's an incredibly exciting time to be in media, as long as, and you see the quote there, as long as you don't wall yourself off, as long as you embrace the possibilities of digital, you're not scared of digital, you don't start sticking paywalls up and charging €1 a week, or you have to embrace this world and put yourself in the middle of it. So for the last, Alan was the man who in 1997 put 20 journalists in a different building and said to them, go and make a kind of Guardian online website thing, and got absolutely ridiculed in the press for doing that, but had the vision to know that this thing was coming and this thing was going to be really important. So for a while we've been trying to make ourselves of the web, not just this kind of newspaper site that puts content onto the web. So a really important role that Alan had in this campaign. And this is his slide. So I've stolen a slide from Alan, but what he was saying, what we've been trying to do at The Guardian is move from this world of traditional print consumption, where it's an editor telling you what's important in the world once a day at 9 o'clock in the morning when you pick up your paper, to go from this kind of closed world to a much more open, multi-way news hub where you have active participants, you have people commenting. The story doesn't stop when you publish it. It carries on and it grows and it gets better. So for a long time we've been working on this model, encouraging our journalists to think this way. And we were starting to see the benefits of that. And I think you look at stories like the Arab Spring and how we covered the Arab Spring. There was a famous UK story which might not have reached Paris, but it was a newspaper vendor who got killed in a riot in London. And it was only through this open way of journalism that we found out what had happened, and it was a policeman who'd pushed him, and it was a fantastic story and a brilliant piece of news gathering that would never have happened with this closed, walled way of doing things. So we felt like we were in quite an exciting place. We were seeing the benefit of this happening, this new model. This is what we meant by open. This was an internal manifesto of open and its benefits. I'll quickly read some of this to you, not all of it, but I'll send this presentation around. Open is a free-flowing river of news and ideas. Open is no paywalls. Open is a story born of endless input. Open isn't answerable to anyone. Open Up is setting up a video exchange between protest camps, is getting the public to investigate expense scandals. So you get it's not just straight consumption, it's not just broadcast media. It's much more about, really galvanizing message internally for journalists to get their heads around this. It took a while, but we'd been doing this for a couple of years as we approached the Pigs campaign. And that really was where we thought the opportunity was. So it was taking all of this exciting stuff that was happening at The Guardian and telling the world about it, essentially. We talked to lots of people about this. We talked to people like Eric Schmidt and Alain de Botton and about how to, you know, what is open? What does it mean to people? How do we talk about it? And I quite like that quote from Alain de Botton, which is admits of a radicalism that's going on. So tell the world about the things you're doing, you know, because this perception of you're a newspaper, you're dying, and, you know, it didn't feel like that. It felt like we were breaking some incredibly important stories. It felt like we were setting the global news agenda. It just didn't feel like we were a dying newspaper. So you had this really galvanizing, exciting place to work. And then this perception out there that we were finished and we were done for. So, you know, this is the context when we started thinking of the campaign. We had a really clear target audience. And I know I put this slide up, and most of the time people say, well, of course you did. But I have to say, for a while we didn't, okay? And we didn't, you know, we suddenly grew digitally, and we were talking millions, not hundreds, and it was, you know, it all got a bit too just about growth, and we really had to focus on who our target audience were. We defined them as progressives, so a group of people who shared The Guardian's outlook and values, but didn't necessarily interact with us, didn't come onto the website, didn't read the paper. And every research group we did, this really sums up the problem. So if you think of our audience, we've got this whole group here who love The Guardian. Doesn't matter what we do, they'll consumers, they'll buy us in the morning, they'll take a subscription, they'll visit the website 3 or 4 times a day. But you've got this whole group over here, in even the UK alone, about 7 million people, who shared The Guardian's values and outlook and agreed with every single thing we said, but had very negative perceptions of The Guardian. So, serious, you're too worthy, you're boring, all of these kind of perceptions which we didn't think were true, and we thought if we could just show people what we do and how we do it, we can address that. So I think we needed to do 2 things. We needed to reassure these people, reassure them, make them feel good, tell them, remind them what The Guardian does and its mission. And for these people, we needed to get them thinking more about The Guardian being open, modern, and dynamic. So that's what we set out to do. And when we talk about open, I mean, it's a really radical thought in the newspaper world. And again, we're in this transition of having one competitive set here in print newspapers and having this other competitive set where open's just a way of life, like Google. But I don't know if you have a French equivalent of a Daily Mail, but there's we play a wonderful game every day called Daily Mail Bingo, where you get a number of points depending on what the headline is. And essentially it's only mortgage problems, Princess Diana, asylum, so, you know, asylum seekers, or how to lose weight. And that's it, that's what's on the front page. So very scaremongering, very kind of one-track right-wing agenda. Do you have an equivalent? Do you have a French Daily Mail? No. You don't know what you're missing. You don't. It's great fun. It's something to fight against all the time. And then we've got, you know, the Times, who are a newspaper competitor, the Telegraph, the FT, all with paywalls. So all putting paywalls up around their content, essentially walling themselves off from the web, which, from an advertising point of view, was a huge, huge advantage for us. So suddenly people stopped advertising with the Times. They went from 33 million unique users to 120,000 unique users in 2 months. From having, now, 120,000 people who were paying, so they're paying £1 a week or, you know, €1 a week, but a very, very small audience. So advertisers would not pay to reach that audience. They could do that in other ways. So a big opportunity as other people were walling themselves off. How do we go out there, be radical, and talk to the world about open? I've talked about that. You know, that's how our audience live their lives now. Even though we're battling in this kind of old world, this is how our audience live. So we needed to show them exactly how The Guardian is open, show them how we operate, show them what we do. But I think crucially, and more importantly, we needed to show them the benefit of The Guardian being open, because there's an expectation from the audience that you're open. But we really needed to show them how, and we needed to show them why. So why is there a benefit to The Guardian being open? And we summed that up really as talking about the age of enlightenment. But what progressive people have always chased is a fuller, more comprehensive richer understanding of the world. So that really was the nub of the campaign, trying to say The Guardian's kind of open way of operating, of being open to the web, gives its readers and its users a much richer picture of the world. That was our starting point. So how demonstrate openness? Why communicate the benefit of having a fuller understanding? This is the actual paragraph from how we briefed, or how BBH briefed their creatives. I should say, sorry, we worked two main agencies on this campaign. BBH are our creative agency. This was their first campaign for us, so we did work with Wyden Kennedy, and then this was part of the BBH pitch, apparently, was doing this. And we worked with PhD, who are part of Omnicom. So they were our media specialists, and BBH did the creative. This was a creative brief, a product demonstration told through film. And I think whenever you say product demonstration, it sounds very dry and very droll, but we were convinced that was the way to do it, to show how The Guardian does this, show its kind of specialness and its uniqueness.